Hey everyone, how are we all doing? Coming to you today from the trails, from my backyard forest. You can see it behind me, sitting today with you here from the skeletons of my backyard forest. I wanted to talk to you today about grounding, about staying grounded, especially when life is fiery, when life is wild, intense, perhaps feeling too much, not okay, that sort of thing, how we stay grounded and what that actually means, what that actually looks like, feels like. I want to speak to you in a way that I know it, as someone who is trained in embodiment, nervous system regulation, yoga therapy, etc., and also as someone who is quite fiery myself, as someone who just naturally, right? I talked about this a lot, like how I just seem to be naturally wired to be really fiery, to embody a lot of fire, and has found myself, living in a very fiery world, a world that has been deeply burned, and in a time, right? I'm going to keep speaking to this, how we've found ourselves now in these very fiery times. I want to be careful with the words we use to speak to times like this. Dark times, painful times, big times, scary times, truly horrific times in a lot of ways. Really bad things are happening in our world on the most powerful of stage. And so the question is, how do we stay grounded? And the place I want to start, I had a plan to come to you today, get all showered, sit inside, have my whole little setup for you inside in a controlled environment. But this morning, I was sitting there, just burning. And it's a theme. It's a theme this week. I'm sure it's going to be a theme moving forward. Just burning. Sometimes when I'll sit in like an earth priestessing space, kind of with my fellow priestesses, and we go deep into earth embodiment, and I've spent years speaking to this like want to ground, to connect with the earth and feel held and supported and nourished. But so often I go inward and I connect to the earth, and I feel myself just turn into a volcano. Just like, and I teach you this, right? How many meditations do I have out there that guide you to this? If you haven't done this with me, I encourage you to go find a meditation where I invite you into grounding, into nurtured connection with the earth. And in this space, we're so often playing in the space of like being present with the ground, with the dirt, the rocks, the roots, the soil. I myself so often do this, and I go down into the earth and I just turn into a volcano. But there's this interesting thing where in grounding in this way, and I use this word grounding because in this process we are physically, intentionally, spiritually connecting with the earth that we all stand on, that we all live on. Connecting to ground, right? We are connecting to ground. We are grounding. Well, what type of ground are you connected to? And in this connection with the ground, can you do it in a way where you feel held, where you feel met, where you can sort of calibrate your inner self, right? The energies alive within self with the earth in a way where you feel met? And, it's lovely to do this. And I teach this because this is, lovely, lovely way to do things, connect with very nourishing, and I think of like rich soil with mycelium and roots from all the trees and the diversity of life, and this very like nutrient dense watery earth, and how nourishing and supportive that is. And it's lovely, and I teach that and I guide that. And again, if you haven't done that with me, I'll have things linked below. Go do that with me. It's important. And then there are those days where I'm just sitting there like a fireball, just sitting in my living room. Like, I want to meditate, but I try to go inward and I just am consumed by fire. I'm, trying to write or otherwise be productive, but I'm just consumed with fire and it's not pleasant. So I try to like ground in the way that I'm, speaking to here, and it's not working. It's not working. But there's this thing about grounding that I learned a few years ago, and I didn't learn it from any other humans. I mean, I had amazing teachers, yoga teachers, yoga therapy training, amazing teachers that were helping me understand sort of the underlying principles of grounding and how that connects to, our nervous system and whatnot. And I was trying to do, back in those times, I was in a deeply traumatized state. I was having panic attacks. Like, my inner world was just fire all the time, and I was trying to follow the techniques that are more traditional in yoga, like the type of yoga practice that I taught this week. Like, get on your yoga mat, feel your feet on the floor, breathe deeply into self. And it wasn't that it wasn't helpful, it was that it was aggravating. It was like this going inward into self, and what I felt, like standing on a rubber mat, closed in a room in quiet, was actually aggravating. Like, it was making things worse. So here I am, like in my own internal hell, trying to battle my way back to grounding, to feeling okay, to being able to be present in my body. And I was, in all the trainings, I had found amazing teachers. They were teaching me amazing principles from yoga, but the practices weren't working for me. Well, the thing is, at that time, I was also training for, I was first training for my first 100K, then I was training for my first 100 miler. And so I was out here on the trails all the time training all the time, and it was out here moving my body, being in connection to the earth, moving, running up a hill. I'm out here today literally running up and down these switchbacks, hill repeats, running up and down a mountain, and I was doing the same sort of thing then. And it's in this space, moving my body with this intensity, that for the first time in those days, I finally felt grounded. I finally felt held. I could breathe deeply. I could be present within self. Just kind of feeling into that for a minute. So it's the same thing today, right? It's the same thing today. I'm, trying to find that inside. Just going to come to you on this YouTube video from inside, our safe, controlled environments, inside 4 walls. And it wasn't working for me. So I did what I know, and I put on my running pack and my running shoes and a lot of layers because it's really cold today. And I started running up this mountain, and I was feeling fiery, and I was burning, and I got super emotional, especially as I started passing by, the first really big skeletons that are still standing 25 years after the fire that burned down this forest. and moving my body with intensity and hanging out with my backyard skeletons and feeling the fire that was burning within me because of what's happening on the political stage right now. Moving with this intensity, there it was. There it was. I could feel the burning. I could feel met. I could feel held by the earth. I could feel the ground beneath me. I could breathe deeply into self. And I could be present. And I could be aware. Feeling within. Being present to what's around me. And this is the state of grounding that I want to speak to. And I want to speak to you in this way because grounding doesn't always look like this super soft, gentle, still practice that I myself teach, so many people teach, because again, it's powerful. It's important. It's important to cultivate that type of grounding. I'm not at all trying to steer you away from that. What I'm trying to do here is to help you understand that grounding looks different depending on what you need, and what you need is going to change moment to moment, day to day. So, after this run, I'll go back home and hopefully that fire within myself has settled. And I'll be able to actually get on my yoga mat and do a slow, gentle practice, the kind I so often teach, because I was able to listen to what I needed. I needed to run. And because I'm so fiery, my sort of intensity looks like running up a mountain. But I also recognize that I am a fireball, like a lot of people aren't. I'm a rare breed, the kind that runs up mountains. So speaking to that, because I'm not here to tell you to go run up mountains when you feel fiery. I'm here to tell you to cultivate the practices that serve you. Sometimes this takes time. Sometimes it takes creativity. And if you want guidance in that, to kind of shortcut, like it took me years to figure this out. So if you want, direct guidance, reach out to me. I will help you get there. I will help you cultivate the practices, whether it's on the mat or off the mat, that help you find your grounding, that help you be present within self, in felt connection to self, and in connection to the greater world we are part of, because that's really, really what we're doing here, right? That's really what I'm teaching here in this new earth space, this new way of being on planet Earth, a way of being where we are in deeper connection to self, in felt connection to self, in tune with self as these beautiful, intelligent, sensing beings that we are. And through this path, this is how we connect to the greater world we are part of. We are living, breathing, sensing beings. And if we're going to connect to this world around us so that we can heal and transform the world that we live in into something brighter and more beautiful, more full of life, then we have to be in tune with reality. And, it's taking a moment to look around. What happens in we disconnect from nature? What happens when we separate ourselves from nature? Just looking around at the once was ponderosa in my backyard, in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of acres that now look like this, because humans have disconnected from nature, because humans have disconnected from self. And in doing so, the world burns. In doing so, we burn. And oftentimes, the remedy to that is to call in that grounding, that watery, nutrient-dense, soil-rich, root-rich, sort of earthy ground that I so often guide us into in meditation and journeying. Oftentimes, that's the remedy to this fire. And other times, the path forward is to meet fire with fire, to not fight against the fires burning within, but to meet that fire so that you can be present to it, so you can feel it, so that it can burn away what needs to burn away, so that it can help you discern. And from this meeting fire with fire, we then get to return to that more traditional way of grounding. This is called pitta balancing in yoga, by the way, if you want to, learn more about it. It's called pitta balancing. I teach it on the yoga mat. It involves kind of doing a lot of intense exercises on the yoga mat, like more intense yoga asana and kind of meet fire with fire. And then once we've met fire with fire, right, we've done a lot of downward dog and warrior and movement. Then from this space, we bring it back down and we bring in those gentler, more ease-filled poses. And in this way, return to grounding. So you can do it on the mat. You can do it by getting outside in nature, moving your body. If you're an extreme fiery being like me, you can go run up a mountain. Alrighty, you're still with me here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and the Ponderosa Skellies here in my backyard today. Say hi to them. They are all around. Many of them still standing 25 plus years after the fires that burned. If you, are walking around in the world and you hear people speaking to the fires that are burning in this world, kind of dismissing them as, oh, fire's natural, things burn and they come back and, it's fine. We don't actually have to care about the fires burning in our world. One little data point here, that there are fires in this world that burn, and they are burning now with an intensity and in connection to climate change, completely alter the face of the earth. So for whatever that little nugget is worth, let's take care of our planet. Let's take care of ourselves. Do it in a way that works for you, that meets you where you're at, that leads you in the direction that you need to go. Let's do this together. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with me today. As always, if you're still here, still kicking it with me, leave a comment. Of course, hit that like button if you haven't. Hit that subscribe button. Let me know you're there listening. All right. I'm going to go keep running. Cheers, guys.